Seriously guys, they just hint at so much here. Okay, so in the previous video, I started breaking down the trailer for Watching and Dreaming, as I believed it gave us enough information to outline the whole finale. I'd broken down the Collector's game into 3 distinct stages, and determined that not only would each be crazier than the last, but also focus in more tightly until only Luce remains. We determined the first 2 stages were going to both play out together, and that our heroes would be divided with only one group moving on. With the Hexite squad as the losers, they would then all be turned into puppets, with only Luce, King, and Ida still together in the game. As we predicted this would only be the bulk of Act 1, there are still 2 acts remaining with a whole lot left to cover. So in this part we'll examine the Collector's final stage, and how the Hexite squad might still be able to give their friends a hand. Even if it's a weirdly jointed, creepy, puppety hand. The Collector's final game will stray the furthest from reality, as he traps the main trio inside a challenge in their dreams. Here he'll decide to split them off, each locked in their own nightmare, and thus forcing each one to face their greatest fears alone. I'm not entirely sure what King and Ida's dreams will be, but as Luce is dressed as Belos here, her fear is pretty clear. She still feels responsible for helping him on his quest, and so views herself in equity with the monster he's become. And though the petrified people here are clearly not real, they represent the guilt she feels for being so naive. I think she's really going to struggle to overcome this self-doubt, and thus ultimately fail to beat the challenge on her own. This is why we later see her friends come to help, as they need to let her know they'll always be there by her side. Even though they're not puppets here, I do think this is real, and they're all just represented differently while they're in the dreamscape. That's why they're all tied up in strings before they get taken out, as even though they're all free for a second, the Collector is still in control. And I know it looks like they're all lunging at Luce, but I don't think they're here to fight her. Like, I don't think this is an illusion or that they're being controlled or something. I think this is literally just a clip of them moving up to Luce, and they're just doing it very quickly as they know they have no time. Or maybe they're lunging at someone else, but we'll get to that thought later. The reason I don't think they're under his control is because in this shot, they haven't yet been tied up. And so as I think it's clear they're not being controlled, then they're definitely not attacking her. I don't know, maybe there's like a half second where they think she might be Belos, and then once they get a little closer, they all realize it's just her. Maybe it's just a goofy little interaction like that, but I really don't think there's any way they'd be fighting. There's also a really cool detail here that proves they're not an illusion. Like, I don't think the Collector would have thought of this if it was all just something he made. When they're all strung up like puppets, even Ghost is strung up too, meaning that even the Palisman's consciousness have been taken by the Collector. With that being said, I think it's clear his control is finally slipping, and I think the shot of Amity's hand explains how this could happen. As she's clearly a puppet here, but is also clearly still moving, it indicates there's more going on inside them than we think. What if the people who are trapped as puppets aren't completely dormant, but have instead all just been tucked away, almost like they're sleeping? I imagine a scene of Amity waking up with nothing around her, locked off in a gray void and thus completely isolated. Then we hear a voice. It's the Collector announcing the final stage to Luce, King, and Ida, and then slowly we can start to see them all come into focus. Amity runs toward them and starts to make out what they're saying, but then they quickly fade away as she's cut off from them again. We then get a glimpse of Willow, and then Gus, and then Hunter, with each one fading out and lasting only for a moment. I think this would be the experience of someone turned into a puppet, slipping in and out of reality, only grasping at moments. But as their minds are all held captive underneath the same spell, there's a chance they're also all connected, trapped in here together. Essentially stuck in a constant state of watching and dreaming, they could all still process pieces of what's happening around them, and could potentially even relay that information to each other. Now, this is just speculation, like clearly it's speculation, but I also believe it's heavily reinforced within the trailer, as even though they're puppets, the Hexite squad have actually been able to figure something out. As they've all now come to realize that Luce needs the glyph, they would have still been able to learn new information in this state. As there's no way they could have known this before the final stage, they could have only managed to find the answer after they were puppets. This would mean they're all still able to view the outside world, as they must have overheard this information somewhere else. Like maybe the Collector just told Odalia or something, and then Odalia was feeling bad and started talking to Puppet Amity. Or maybe Amity just heard something else and pieced it all together. Whatever it was, you get the idea. She was able to listen, and so she figured it out. This concept of a dream state in which the puppets are all aware is even further reinforced as they help her out together. Not only have they recognized what's needed for the challenge, but they've clearly communicated as they show up as a team. Like there's no way they'd all be here at the same time without a plan, and I don't think they could have even pulled it off without each other. This reflects how the puppets are all connected within the Collector's magic, and could thus all learn to communicate if they gave it enough attention. As Amity's the one that's scratching the glyph, I think it all starts with her, as it must take an immense amount of focus to break through, and she's thinking about it so hard that she's actually able to move. Like I don't think she's trying to scratch the glyph out on the ground, but it's rather just an indication of how intensely she's focused. This is what separates her from everyone else, as they're all scared and confused and thus ultimately distracted. But right now Amity only has just one thing on her mind: getting her Luce.
Stay away from my Luce!
I think this is why she's able to get to the rest of the squad as well, as she's been able to gain some clarity and thus navigate the mindscape, as nobody else would have such a singular focus, such intense concentration as she does right now. I'm pretty sure that she's the only one that could do it, and I think that's why the trailer reinforces her importance. I don't want to say it's the power of love, but I guess that's kind of what it is. It's the power of love. It's the power of Lumity!
Oh, crikey.
This is actually also reinforced in For the Future, as we've already seen a different puppet break through the spell. As Lilith was the one that was able to get through to Hooty, it's been established that true love might actually be the key, and so it makes sense that Amity might actually be able to do this.
Sequestered in a darkness like unto death, the dulcet tones of an angel wakes me.
In managing to break through to the rest of the Hexside squad, she's not only able to share this important information, but also helps to get all them to concentrate as well. So as they now all understand that the light glyph is the key, they can focus all their energy on getting one to Luce. And with this immense concentration, they're able to break free and thus connect with Luce's dream before the Collector can find out. Now that's what I'd call a lucid dream, eh?
Huh? Comedy police! The joke was too funny!
As the Collector is trying to do too much here at once, I think this concentration is enough to mess him up, with this being how the Hexside squad are able to break free, and thus manifest themselves to pass their info onto Luce. It's kinda like a WandaVision situation, you know? With the Collector controlling everything, a few things start to slip. That being said, his battle for control is far from over, and they won't be able to keep themselves unnoticed very long. I actually really like this structure for the finale, as the Collector accidentally undoes his own plans. In trapping the rest of our heroes as puppets, he actually gives them an opportunity.
An opportunity?
And allows for this thread of separate intertwining plot lines where it's actually the group behind the scenes that get to find the answer. It's kinda like in King's Tide, when everyone else is fighting Bellows, and King goes off on his own to try to talk to the Collector. This idea of the puppets being essentially powerless, but then using it to figure something out is really fun, and honestly just such an Owl House way to do it. In the next part, we'll take a look at the end of Luce's challenge and see how everything comes together to set up the final act. Oh, and don't worry, I haven't forgotten about this guy, and I'll touch on everything he's been up to while the Collector's been distracted. Okay, so I know this one had a lot more speculation than the last, so I understand the argument of, well, the trailer didn't tell us everything because it's all just speculation. But that's kinda missing the point of what I'm really trying to say, as all of my conclusions were based on evidence from the trailer. It's essentially as if the trailer had just shown me those conclusions. My goal was to find the most evidence-based option for any specific story beat, and only pose an idea if it was heavily reinforced by several other elements that were present in the trailer. When I was working all this out, each option I decided on didn't seem like the best, it seemed like the only one when considering all the details. Obviously I'm gonna make some mistakes, but that was at least the goal. So in that sense, the trailer did give away the whole finale, as the finale that I'm presenting only exists from what's in the trailer.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
If this didn't make any sense, then that's fine, and I'm sorry. Basically, you're never gonna get the whole episode in a trailer, but this trailer gave us a ridiculous amount of hints. Like, compare this to the trailer we got for the Future, which didn't even show the episode's main antagonist. Whereas in this one, we got like multiple phases of the Collector's plan, and even some parts of Bellows' plan. That's a lot of stuff. And so I'd followed all of those hints as strictly as I could. But let me know what you think in the comments, cause honestly, I don't know, man. And I'll catch you all again tomorrow as I post the final part, and we'll take a look at the rest of the trailer to figure out the final act.